Well, good morning. This is chapter 38. In chapter 38, we now transition from Jacob to looking at one of his sons, and that son is Judah. And it begins the text by telling us that Judah took for himself a Canaanite wife by the name of Shua. She bore him three sons, Er, Onan, and Shelah. Now, Er, as he advanced in age, he took a wife by the name of Tamar. But the problem was that Er did evil before the Lord, and the Lord took his life. And that created a dilemma in Judah's household. How was Tamar to be looked after? How was all the land and her sons going to be taken? So that comes into play, the levirate marriage. So Onan, the next oldest brother, was sent in. He failed to do his duty, and the Lord took his life. And Judah was afraid for his last son, so he said, "Wait and remain in my household, Tamar, until Shelah grows up." Well, apparently he grew up, and he still did not fulfill his responsibility. So Tamar took matters into her own hands and went up to Timnah. And there, because Judah's wife had passed away, he went in and knew her. She secured a price for that and took his cord and his seal. And she bore children from Judah. And she had twins by the name of Perez and Zerah. I noticed just what Judah said in verse 26, recognizing this about this whole episode. He says in verse 26, Judah recognized them, and he said, "She is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah." And he remained pure to the end.
Yeah. There's so many directions you can go in this. One would be honoring your word, all of this stems from his failure to do what he said he would do. But I want to focus on the problem of double standards. Here, Tamar wrongly decided she would take matters into her own hands, and she dresses like a prostitute, and she has sex with her father-in-law. She gets pregnant. And he's fine with having sex with another woman and committing fornication. Even though his wife has died, he's committing fornication. He's fine with that. But then when he finds out that his daughter-in-law is pregnant, he's ready to kill her. That's a double standard. And it's not fair to live by double standards. When we apply double standards to someone else, we don't apply standards to ourselves that we apply to other people. It becomes very obvious pretty quickly. And his shame came when he recognized he was living by a double standard. This applies in a lot of different areas. Parents. I think parents need to really be careful, and sometimes we do apply double standards to ourselves. Sometimes parents, not us obviously, but some parents I've heard over the years, they won't go to worship services, but they make their kids go. Well, the kids are going to see that. They don't do their Bible lessons, but they make their kids do their Bible lessons. They don't pray, they don't study the Bible, but they make sure their kids do that. That's living by a double standard. And your child's going to see that at some point. I remember hearing the phrase when I was growing up, do as I, well, not by my parents, well, somewhat. Yeah, for that. Do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't fly. In our relationship with one another, we've got to make sure we apply the same standards. Try to be fair with everyone and not live in hypocrisy.
Good point. I want to take a point from verse 15. It says, when Judah saw her, Tamar, he thought she was a harlot. The fact is what she chose to wear and where she chose to be influenced how Judah saw her. As much as we don't like to admit it, where we choose to be and how we choose to present ourselves, people are going to look at that and draw a conclusion. It may be incorrect, but the fact of the matter is more often than not, we project an image of ourselves by what we choose to wear and where we choose to be. And we just need to be conscious of that. How do I want to appear in the eyes of others? Sometimes we can't help it, but a lot of times we can. And if it is within our power, we want to present ourselves in a godly, righteous way that doesn't distract from our purpose of being Christ-like and Christ-centered.
Yeah, amen.
So thank you for joining us today. If you've got any thoughts on Genesis chapter 38, we'd love to hear them. A very complex chapter.